we get there, I get finished, we could go ahead and start. So I don't know when you need to record.
I just started it.
Okay. As chair of the Hampton Falls School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which it was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Hampton Falls School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 929-205-6099, and the password 878-6.
Greg, we've lost your audio.
Assisting the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the SAU 21 office at www.sau21.org. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-926-8992, extension 103, or email at revans@sau21.org. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note, all votes that are taken during the meeting should be done by roll call. Let's start by taking roll call attendance. Rhonda?
Greg Merrill. Greg Parrish.
Present with family in and out.
John Bailey.
Present with family in and out.
Jason Farias.
Present, family in and out.
And Jill Swayze.
Present, no family.
Okay, Greg,
Jill,
roll call.
Jill, you did not get a vote, so we will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. That's nice, Rhonda.
Very nice.
Wow.
Nice touch.
Like that.
See, and you, never mind.
Never missed that. That was good. Okay. We will open the public hearing on the proposed withdrawal from the Building Maintenance Expendable Trust for the cost related to the purchase of a new freezer and cooler for the school nutrition program. Questions and comments will be heard at this time.
Hey, Greg, is this equipment? I'm sorry, you may have already said it. Replacing or new?
Matt, do you want to?
Yeah, I can give a quick summary of this project. So, our current freezer and refrigerator combo unit in the kitchen is 30 plus years old and has really reached end of life. We're incurring $3,000-4,000 every year in repairs, and the concern is that it is one of these times. At any moment, we won't be able to repair it. So, I mean, we've had moments where we've had to store our food over at Winnicott for a period of time because of the issues that we've had with this freezer and refrigerator. So this was part of the budget process last fall. What the board decided was that we would bring forth this project and fund it via the building maintenance expendable trust. We had estimated this would cost about $50,000 because it's the actual unit, and then there's the new, because there's not enough space, it's actually being bumped out through the wall. So there's a construction component of it. So the actual unit, which we're bringing forth this evening for award of bid, is $27,450. And then there's an additional $9,825 in construction and the actual installation costs by a different contractor. So the total is $37,275, which is actually, almost $13,000 less than what we had estimated last year. So that's kind of the general scope of the of this project.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any public comment or questions? Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing. And Bill, we just move on to the next topic, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda are the minutes from our May 12th, 2020 school board meeting. Board have any questions or amendments or anything of the nature regarding those minutes? Since nobody has any questions, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for the May 12th, 2020 school board meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the school board meeting for Tuesday, May 12th, 2020 as presented.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call. You're
Bobby,
muted.
you're muted.
Sorry. Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
Jason Farias,
Yes.
and Jill Swayze.
Yes.
I have the vote recorded, Greg.
Thank you. Item 3, reports. Finance, Matt?
Yeah, so we've included the year-to-date fiscal expenditure and revenue reports in board docs. There have been no significant changes from last month, but I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have about specific accounts on either report.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions. I think it was the tuition and travel lines.
Yeah, so that's under special education.
Yep. It looks like they well exceeded anticipated.
Yeah, so we're over budget by $186,000.
Even with like the reduced travel from COVID and.
So that tuition account is for out of district placements.
Okay.
So every year we budget based on our known student needs. So this past year, there were a number of out of district placements that were unanticipated. So that's a cost. So that's the tuition that we pay for these outside schools, specialized schools that we send our students to for, whether it's medical reasons or, various special needs. So you are also referencing the travel account right underneath it, travel reimbursement. We're over budget by $1,484. Yeah, so I mean, with those increased needs, our special education staff also needs to go on site, at those out of district placements. There's also travel reimbursement for professional development. So we did go over budget on that account. Any sort of any sort of travel was curtailed, certainly as of March. That being
Okay.
said, we would have gone further over budget
Right,
had we stayed in schools.
continued.
So that's an area where we saved a small amount. If you look at it from a year-long perspective, maybe we saved $400. So
Okay. Okay. And what are the asterisks on the next to the end of some of the lines mean? It seems like coincide with where we've gone over, but not ubiquitously. I'm just trying to understand these.
yeah, no, absolutely. So any account that is over budget is asterized. I
Asterized, that's a good word.
don't know if that's a real word, actually.
I don't either, but I like it.
just made it
I
up,
like it.
so it sounded good.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Matt, it's Greg. I have a question. That being said, regarding the overages in special education, if I understand this, as of June 2nd, our available budget is still $231,000. 231. Yeah.
Yeah,
230.
I mean that's a misnomer because that doesn't include the food service transfer, in any end of year, payouts. So that's closer to $150,000.
And so we're looking at roughly 150 going back to the town.
Well, and that prior to going back to the town, we fund our expendable trusts.
Okay.
So and then the balance would go back to the town. So I believe the last board meeting I reported that I think we were sending in excess of $100,000 back to the town. So
Okay.
that estimated.
No, that's fine.
Another asterized. What was the word I used?
That was word.
That was it.
Yeah.
Didn't sound as good coming out the second time, did it?
Yeah. That could be the last time I use that term.
John or Jay, do you have any questions for Matt?
Matt, I just, when I see something that's 340% over budget, maybe the engineering looks at that and says, where did the forecast fail for this budget? And I just want to get an understanding if this is an anomaly, or if there's, how did that happen, for multiple line items here? Just curious.
Oh, so for, the 340%, I assume you're referring to the travel reimbursement.
That's one of them. Yep. That's one of them.
So, I mean, the simple answer is we are making assumptions 12 to 18 months in advance of actual events.
So are these kindergartners that you haven't planned on? Because I'm assuming that that the special ed kids are already tracked, right? By the time they're in kindergarten or first.
Yeah, so that doesn't account for students that move into district. That doesn't account for services that may change for a particular student. Special education, you'll learn very quickly, Jason, is a volatile. Those accounts are fairly volatile. But we certainly will do our best to account for and estimate for those costs. However, depending on how a student is progressing, and again, whether whether students are moving in or out of district, there are many areas where it's completely out of our control.
So Jason, let me give you an example. We just had a student move into another one of our districts, and that student's not going to be reflected in that budget, obviously, because that budget was built back in October, passed in March. But but a fairly extensive out-of-district placement cost is going to have to be part of what we pay out. So that's generally how some of these occur, although they can occur with students who we thought we had a placement that would work, but it ends up not working and they have to go out of district to get the appropriate placement. All of those things can factor in, and the distance with which we have to put budgets together makes special education in particular, more than lots of other areas, very, very difficult.
I mean, and then you're talking about like court placements, where we actually did, the IEP team doesn't even make the decision. That's out of our hands entirely.
Oh.
You know, the example that Bill references is like almost 1% of the entire budget for that school district. That it's a huge sum, and this is exactly the reason why we have our expendable trusts, because those are contingencies, because there's so much uncertainty with some of these
Do you ever
accounts.
get a chance?
I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I'd love to say that we could, forecast some of these. I mean, many of these accounts, I mean, I'm saying across the board, but, you'll see like the way the budget process is structured, we're forced to make these estimates and these forecasts far in advance, and and life happens, and things market factors change, market drivers. I mean, take a look at what's happening right now with COVID. I have no idea how this is going to affect us next year. Right?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
I'd be curious.
Talk about estimates being off.
Yeah.
Boy, let's take a look at next year.
Yeah.
Jason, you were going to ask something.
No, that's geez. I mean, I'm just trying to think. I mean, to get a better handle on that, extrapolation, or if there's any historical data we could look at, but.
It's difficult because even in another state where we were allowed to create contingencies within budgets, we would go through and create those contingencies, and we would still, if you look at articles about Massachusetts districts, you'll still see that one of the areas that they tend to miss in is special education, just because of those unknowns of move-ins or particular placements or change of placements. A placement we have a student in doesn't work out, they end up needing a different placement, it has a different cost. All those kinds of things can happen.
It's interesting. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't mean to. Yeah. Just some edification there. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you look at a $6-7 million budget, and we're within like $100,000. The margin of error. I mean, I'm pretty proud of how close we are. Right. I mean, because you don't want to give too much back either. So the fact that when you take a look at the entire budget and we're within $100,000, which is margin of error of 1 to 2%, I think that's a testament to how closely we look at these budget numbers. And boy, you'll find some significant variations in many accounts, but as a whole, we put a lot of. And you'll see when we go through the budget process, the number of hours that we put into these budgets and thought. But unfortunately, there's always going to be items that are out of our control. So.
Thank you.
All set, Jay?
All set. Thank you.
John, anything?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. We're going to move on to, thanks, Matt. Move on to public comment. Seeing that there's no public comment, I'll close public comment and go on to continuing business. The administrative update on the return to school task force.
So I'll handle this part tonight, and then I think Beth will probably add some things about the sort of the end of the year. And if you have questions of any of us, please feel free. So the task force met again. Gosh, today's Tuesday. The task force met yesterday again. And there's a couple of things I want to make sure you're aware of in terms of next steps. So next Monday night at 5 o'clock, we will brief the joint board on where we are. I wouldn't call that like sort of our final report. It's not, but it is sort of where we are, what we've been discussing, what kinds of things we think we might know, what we're still puzzled over, and that's a lot. That'll be next Monday at 5 o'clock. Next Tuesday morning at 11 a.m., we're going to hold a briefing for our employees. That's an employee-only briefing. You have to have a Winnicott or SAU email to participate in that, because we want to give employees a chance to ask their questions, all right, separate from a public session. And then we're going to hold a public session that evening. And we're actually going to do that with SAU 90, the two of us together. And we're involving all the working group chairs in all three of those sessions. And then the task force is going to get back together next Thursday to sort of digest what people said to us and what the questions still are. So that's the architecture for the next couple of weeks. What I want to share with you tonight is just some work that the chairs in particular have been doing off of their working groups. We've asked them to sort of think about, are there things that we should be considering thinking about that are not scenario dependent? Remember, we sent them into their work with these at least 3 different scenarios to look at. But the question we've asked is, are there things we could be doing now that are not necessarily scenario dependent? And so tonight I just wanted to give you a number of those areas that we've been talking about, maybe just to whet your appetite for next Monday evening. So one of those things is that we believe we've learned that we have to ensure a robust wireless infrastructure in all of our buildings, and that we make certain that the upload and download speeds of that backbone are the same. Most are not. Most schools are not, which is why streaming out of buildings is very difficult, because that upload speed or download speed is different. So Jason Saltmarsh in particular is working with our people in buildings to make sure that we have that capability out of our buildings. We also want to make sure that the toolbox that we're able to provide for K-8 schools, because there's going to be some degree of use of technology, increased use of technology, and some degree of remote learning in any of these scenarios. We want to make sure that we have the right kind of toolbox available for our teachers, particularly those at the K-8 school, and that we have a process in place where if teachers find something that's interesting that they think their colleagues might benefit from, that they can have a process to add that to that toolbox. We've talked a lot about schedules, that even if we don't go into the year remotely, we need to have a remote schedule in place that we can pivot to at each school. And that those schedules need to match up, right? So that if you have kids at the elementary school and the high school, those schedules match in some way so that your home doesn't go crazy because of our schedules. So that's an important one, making sure that we have a schedule for synchronous, for a face-to-face learning, and that looks different, probably certainly more of that than there was in this time period. That's some feedback we've heard from families in particular. We need to pay attention to grading and reporting practices, the measurement system for student performance, attendance, those kinds of things, if we have to shift quickly to remotely. One issue that I saw some representatives, some teachers from the high school who are on here who also work with our union. And it's an issue I've talked with them about. Under operations, we have systems in place as a country, and certainly as a school district, that sometimes encourage the wrong behavior. They encourage people to come to school sick. They encourage people to send their kids to school sick because they have to go to work or whatever. And now we're asking people, if we're back face to face in schools, we're asking people to change that mindset, to change that behavior now. And yet, a lot of our systems encourage them to do just the opposite. So the conversations are, how in the world do we work with that and encourage people to do what we need them to do, which is, if you're sick, stay home. we've talked about screening processes. We've talked about surveys to gauge how many people will want to use our transportation, because we know if we reduce the number of students in a classroom or in school at any given time, we can't socially distance on our buses the way we're set up now. We also have been paying a lot of attention to some other districts and what they've been looking at in terms of surveys. So Oyster River, I want to give you an example, has surveyed their staff, their families, their students, and asked, if we have these kinds of precautions in place, which are the things you've seen come out of the CDC and DHHS, will you send your kids back to school? Will you come back to school? Oyster River is reporting that among parents, it's 20% have said, no, I don't think I would be comfortable right now sending my kids back to school. That about 20% of their employees are reporting, I don't think I'd be comfortable coming back to work. Interestingly enough, they surveyed their 5th through 12th graders, and only about 10% of the kids said they wouldn't be comfortable. But those numbers are important, and we're going to be surveying people and asking similar kinds of questions to try to gather that information as well. So those are just some of the pieces that we've been talking about in terms of not necessarily being scenario dependent. There's a whole lot more. I have to tell you, this is a great committee. This task force is an incredible group of people. I'm exhausted every Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock when we're done with that conversation, because the amount of information being pumped out of each of these 5 groups, and it's overwhelming to consider the things that have to be done to deal with any of these scenarios. But that's what we put this group together for. We're still supposed to have a state report by June 30th. I don't believe that will happen because they've not been timely with any of their reports yet. They've not met a deadline in terms of putting a report out in a timely fashion yet. So I don't believe we will have that. And I'm not sure how much guidance we will in the end get from the state as to what the decision will be in September. I'd love to tell you, I think we're going to have some, executive orders or whatever that govern whether we actually do come back or not. I'm not sure that will be the case. That doesn't seem to be the indication we're getting out of the department now. They are very clearly telling us that they will give us guidance and nothing more. So, I'm happy to try to answer any questions on the work we've been doing. Oh, one more. The one sort of, I think we do absolutely 100% know, and that's schedule. So we're going to be working the next few weeks on some proposed revision to the school schedule for next year. It will try to do 2 things. First of all, move more professional development time up to the beginning of the year so that we can work with teachers around whatever scenario we encounter at the beginning of the year. Second, that takes a look at whether we can convert to an hours schedule for next year instead of a days schedule. It'll allow us to work against 990 hours. That will give us more time for teachers to work together through the year as we can counter different models or different scenarios that we might have to deal with. So that's going to be our attempt to create some kind of a schedule that does that, that looks different than the schedule we have in place. We know that's good. SAU 90 is going to work with us, adopt the same schedule for their students. That's important for us because of Winnicott in particular. But that's a given that we're going to be looking to create some time up front for teachers to prepare for whatever the scenarios may be. So happy to try to answer any questions. And again, I have 3 of the co-chairs or 3 of the chairs of subgroups here. We'll have all of them with you next Monday. Donna and Jason will join us. And we'll have all of them with us on that community call, which we expect to be crowded. We hope it's crowded next Tuesday night.
Bill, it's Greg. I have a couple questions. If we're not getting the state guidance that you're alluding to, are we essentially on our own, or will the New Hampshire School Board Association come out with something that will give the entire school districts all the school districts across the state some sort of a roadmap?
Well, we'll get guidance. It'll be very high level, but what we won't get, and it worries a lot of people, is what we won't get is guidance that's specific enough that it keeps Exeter from doing something different than SAU 21, that's different from Portsmouth, right? And so we're trying to work together with all those districts to try to make sure we can do something that's similar, that's consistent enough, because we have teachers who live in all these communities, and if we do something different than what they do, that throws off their ability to come to work or to take care of their children or whatever. And our goal, I need to say, is to come back, right? Is to be back in school in some fashion, because, you know, parents have said that to us. Please, please, please be trying to find ways to have kids in school. They need to come back for social reasons. They need to come back because I need to go to work. All those kinds of things that are part of what we do, and we're trying to do that. It's easier to do if we do something together because of our teachers who live in those other districts. So we'll get some guidance, Greg, and we may even, you know, unlike my colleagues here in Massachusetts, it does appear that the state is trying to help us with PPE. For an example, here in Massachusetts, they've said to school districts, you're on your own. This is what you need to have in place, but in terms of purchasing and whatever, you know, but take it out of your budgets. That's not been the case with some of the masks and things like that through Homeland Security. So far, we anticipate some of that could continue.
Is there any sort of a legal document we can put together to get, let's call it us, the Southeast region, at least all on the same page and following similar paths, or is that asking too much?
That's asking a lot, given the number of school districts, given the number of school boards, you know, everybody who has their own individual needs. I think, though, people are beginning to realize what I just said to you a few minutes ago, that we all have teachers who live in each other's districts.
Okay.
And if we do things that are too different, it will be very taxing on each of our systems.
Okay. My next question, if they're requiring specific technology measures to be met, are they providing any financial assistance to help districts meet those requirements?
So they are not. That's a recommendation that's come out of our group in terms of what we do in terms of our beefing up our Wi-Fi network so that we can project out from our buildings instead of each of us from our homes. We have teachers teaching at home now. But if we had a scenario where teachers were doing that from a school, you know, do we have enough bandwidth to handle everyone being able to communicate with their students who maybe aren't in school? And that's what we're trying to make sure that we can do. The high school seems to have that capability, again, both upload and download. We need to make sure that all of our buildings have that so that we can implement all these different varieties of modes that we might want to implement. Right now, in some places, we're hamstrung by the technology or our infrastructure in terms of in terms of being able to do everything we might want to do.
So that being said, Matt, with this technology upgrade we're about to vote on here shortly, will we meet those requirements?
So this is the first step. So this provides the infrastructure. We will likely need to make an investment in the bandwidth in addition to this. So when I say bandwidth, I mean the the amount of service that we're receiving via Comcast or another vendor. So a gig coming through. I'm throwing out a number there, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Increasing that amount.
Have you begun researching additional cost on that yet? Not that you need anything else on your plate.
Yeah, no, we're hey, I won't take the credit there. I know Zach is working on that.
Okay.
Part of the complexity is that our current contract with Comcast is tied between internet and our phone system.
Okay.
So I know there's some implication there as far as if we increase our internet service, our phone costs may increase. So we're working with them, and we'll also look at other vendors as a possibility. So.
My last question, Bill, you mentioned a percentage of people that Oyster River said may not send their kids back. Are we looking at how we will manage that with the staff and students that choose to take that path? Is their decision until they feel comfortable? And what's our management prospects or plan to manage both those entities?
Well, there's no decision, but there are a number of different discussions as to how we might offer remote for some, in class for some, right? So the discussion's been about what are those different modes, and quite frankly, what do they look like? Are they students participating in the same class? You know, Jason calls that, you'll hear him say next Monday, he calls that room and Zoom, right? So is that the scenario, or are these separate classes? We simply don't know yet, but we do know we want to accommodate those students. We want to accommodate those teachers. You know, on a smaller scale, we did this when our students returned from Italy. Remember way back when?
Mhm.
We did this then, right? We ran those. We had teachers who were excluded from school who were teaching from home.
Yeah.
We had students who were excluded who were sitting in on classes,
Okay.
right? And so we have some experience, but this is a much larger scale, and is fraught with issues that we need to explore and come up with solutions to.
Okay.
Bill, I have a question. Thanks. And this makes my head spin thinking about, you know, I was watching the news, and in some states, the numbers are just spiking.
Yeah.
And we've opened our beaches, and, you know, we don't know what the heck's going to happen next month.
Yeah. We had that conversation on Monday, by the way.
Yeah, I bet. So I wonder if, as a board, we can consider developing some expectations that might help teachers navigate some of the uncertainties that they're going to face, that might help with some decision making. And I think I mean on a much smaller scale than some of what you're talking about. But when I think of my job, and, you know, that I can't be attentive all the time, and there are certain hours of the day that I need to be a parent, and it's good to know what's expected of me for my work so that I can navigate all of these pieces that I'm juggling. And I don't know that we had the opportunity prior to develop something, but I would think if we can be a little explicit and help them understand what we expect, it's to their benefit, because then they can relax in some situations. And I'm not sure if that's something as a board we can start doing as we, you know, go towards the timeline of potentially getting back to school, hopefully getting back.
Yeah. So thank you for that. You'll hear David talk next Monday, or he can say a word now about some expectation documents that his group is working on. I'll just say that you're going to see a lot of what you just talked about coming out of these committees in terms of parameters. Some of those I'll mention because I see Andy Wallace is here. I want to mention that there are a number of these things that will need to go into, depending on the scenarios we're faced with, we'll need to go into a second MOA with our teachers union, right? They'll be negotiated. So all the things you just laid out, yes, all to come. Some of them that will be in the form of recommendations, some of them that will be in form of, I'm sure, bargaining.
Great.
I'll just chime in really quickly.
Please.
With respect to the return to instruction group, that's my group. We got a dozen people working on it. And a couple of things that we're going to be producing. We've actually split up into groups focusing on elementary, middle, and high school minimum expectations for teachers, what they should be doing with their time and what they should be doing with their day. You know, that provides the accountability that we're looking for. We did put together a set of expectations this spring. It was much broader and less defined, I think, than the product we're going to see coming out of our working group now, just because we know more. And furthermore, we know kind of what's possible, what works, what doesn't work so well. So you will see that. The other step we've taken, which I think is an important one, is we've set up an accountability agreement for students and parents as well. Look, this is the responsibility of a student in a remote scenario. This is the responsibility of a parent in the remote scenario. And this is what teachers do in a remote scenario. So just to get everybody on the same page,
Great.
understand
That's great to hear.
the interplay between all of us.
Yeah, I love it. I love that sort of three-way contract approach too, you know, between the student, the parent, and the teacher.
Right.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Dave, I have a question. First of all, that sounds fantastic, especially the accountability portion of that. I think one of the things, and I speak for a few parents that I've talked to, would assuage some fears is some sort of, I don't know how you accomplish this, but transparency with respect to curriculum, milestone, and how is my child weighing against that, in periodic intervals. I've fielded a lot of questions where people are just worried that, as you well aware, this environment, they will not, the online doesn't provide them with as much instruction as they would normally have. And I'm just thinking of how you intend to look at that, or maybe some sort of progress report, something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, that stuff happens organically and so much in face-to-face instruction that we don't even see it most of the time.
Right.
But yeah, so with respect to the remote scenario, which is kind of where we spend our time, we have it articulated in two different ways, really. One is expectations around, feedback on assignments, just kind of formative feedback, coaching that a teacher would do, getting some language around expectations on that. And the second is more structural, and it's kind of where you went, creating sort of a cycle of progress reports or a cycle of reporting where moms and dads would understand kind of where their students are having trouble and where they need extra support.
Mm-hmm.
We could say that easily happens through PowerSchool, but I think we know that the verbal communication or the written communication helps a lot as well. So yeah, that's certainly on our plate.
It almost seems like one of the positives from all this is that as far as integrating competency-based assessment, this would be a great way to integrate that, And
yeah, it's funny going to the Seacoast curriculum meetings, and the schools that have made the jump into competencies, this district included, are kind of smiling a little bit because they have a metric that nobody else has in terms of progression.
Flexible and adaptable to all of this, yeah.
Right, and a roadmap of how to move forward with your students.
Right. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Any additional questions?
Much more to come next Monday night. Join us.
Looking forward to it. We'll move on to new business.
Well, Beth, do you want? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Beth or Caroline.
Beth to jump in and talk about the end of the year and
Bill.
All the great work that's been done at your building.
Do you want me to jump in terms of the task force, or just jump in terms of Lincoln Ackerman?
Lincoln Ackerman be great.
Yeah, actually, I would love to. I'll start with Janice Cassidy. She has not really received her due in terms of retirement, but I do want to let all of you know that we celebrated her today. We had a parent reverse parade, which, who knew, 12 minutes. Ours was 3 hours, but I loved them both. But today, parents drove through. We afterwards gathered around a table, all 6 feet apart, the staff, and we gave her the bowl from all of you, the Paul Revere bowl, that is traditional from school boards, which she really loved that. She's obviously been around for a long time and understood the tradition, so she was moved by that. We made a video for her that was a different type of thank you note from every single staff member. We sang 5 Pumpkins. I don't think I've sung that since I was 6. That was fun. Jim Cutting led that. Apparently that's her favorite song with her kindergartners. But Janice, on a more serious note, will be really missed. She has come to work with a smile every day. She's incredibly organized. People always go to her for, hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? And she's really given a lot to Lincoln Ackerman. And I'm sorry she had to go out this way. She actually sat in a chair in the office on March 16th when we did our other parent pick up and swap off. And she just looked at me and she's like, I can't believe I might end my career this way. And I looked at her, I said, no way, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And she said she knew then that we wouldn't be. And but she's really happy. All her bucket list plans for retirement are travel, visiting family and all those things that she can't do. So I'm hoping that things work out for her for the best. But I just wanted to start off with that. We also had a fabulous send-off for our 8th grade students. You know, we were given very strict guidelines, you all know. And at the end, we felt it was very personal, very intimate. We all got a chance to talk to every single student, which we felt was incredibly important. And I think a lot of the silver lining that's coming out of this COVID-19 and remote learning and all of that is the human relationships that we have, and how do you really pull in all your traditions into what we did. I think our memory boxes have a new life. I hope you loved the tribute video that we made. I thought it was quite beautiful and really honored every single one of our students in a really nice way. We love that. I haven't seen all of you for a month, but it's been a busy month. It's been a hectic month. I think everybody's really tired. But I think when we have opportunities to reflect, and those reflections will show up in our task force subcommittees. I personally am part of the crisis response group with Caroline, and my subcommittee is the staff. And our focal point with our staff is to really gauge where they are with all of this remote learning, with all of the perhaps child traumas that may come out of this, and how are we going to provide them all the things that we need. And we're looking for information in a really authentic way with them. We want to honestly know how they feel, but also what are their recommendations for how could we do things better? How can we, you know, all the nice pieces with accountability and curriculum and all that. This one is more about mental health, well-being, because a healthy teacher has a healthy classroom, and we know it starts there. So we really want to make sure that we put things in place for our staff members that they need, they want, they'll feel supported, and they'll feel invigorated by, so that we can keep going, because we will get to the end of all of this. In terms of nuts and bolts at Lincoln Ackerman, we did the parent swap off, you know, all those things, and went really smoothly, went really well. People are still looking for very specific items and are lost and found, but we'll get past that. I don't know where kids lose things, but they do. That was pretty funny today, but we had a nice exchange. And in terms of grading and things like that, we did send out letters, we've sent out rubrics, and we're gonna do that all over again. And parents will see that probably early next week. We have our elementary K to 4 pretty much done. It's the Power School part of grades 5 through 8 that is going to take a little bit longer. But SAU-wide, we did develop a really nice rubric that is not punitive, not gentle, but it gives us diagnostic information so that we can start our school year off next year and really meet kids where they're at. So that's the information that we wanted to gather there. Questions? You know, we ended today pretty much. We have another day tomorrow, but the building's clean. Everybody's out. People are respectful of the mask wearing and all of that. And there's a little bit of fear. I'm not going to kid you. There is a little bit of fear coming back like this. We do have staff members that feel as though their health is a #1 concern to them, obviously, and to us, but you know, how are we going to manage all of those things in the next couple of months?
Thank you, Beth. Yeah, it wasn't easy, and you
No.
guys did a phenomenal job. And you know, my kids got pretty tired of it by the end,
Yeah.
but they held it together a long time, and that's a testament to the teachers.
You know, I also want to give a testament out to the kids. This has really not been easy for children. It's an unknown. Children are, I think a lot of them are automatically resilient, but I think it's going to show up in different places, which is why in our crisis response team, we have another whole subcommittee, obviously, that will deal with children. It's the social part of it's been very difficult for them, or the lack of it. I mean, many of our families have 3 and 4 children, but many of them don't. And those children that are single children or at home, or parents that are working, it's been very difficult for them. So we'll provide all the additional supports that we need for them to make sure that they get back on their feet pretty quickly if that's the case. But we miss them. We really miss them. I can't wait to get back in the building with kids.
Beth, it's Greg. I want to commend you and the staff on the graduation.
Thank you.
By no means is it what anybody thought or planned. You did a great job.
You
Thank
know, Greg, I really appreciate that. And I don't mean to get emotional here, but that was one of my all-time favorite graduations. And it's, you know, the staff at the end of it, first of all, our entire staff minus a couple showed up for that, which is not usually the case in Lincoln Ackerman. You know, usually it's in the morning, so they're unable to, but, you know, they wanted to be there. But each child, we had the opportunity to speak to them very one-on-one, very intimately. And, you know, the whole memory box, that tradition, which we thought was going to die this year, and it didn't. We actually revived it to be able to do it this way. But I think by the end of all of our car stops, there wasn't a kid that wasn't smiling. You know, because we were able to address them as individuals. And somebody at the end of our graduation, I was telling Bill this earlier today, somebody said, you know, this was the first graduation we've had that was all about the kids and not about the audience. So I think what we'd love to take away from it is how do we keep all of those elements and then keep pulling back all the other traditions we've had too, because it actually taught us quite a bit. And that is what Lincoln Ackerman is about. It's our connections with each other, with people. And, you know, we've all just gone through a pandemic, and, you know, we wanted to celebrate our 8th grade, and we hope that they felt celebrated and at least honored. The tribute to me was really quite special.
The tribute was good. I do think, you know, I have two to measure. They missed a lot, and I know they felt it, but I know they're appreciative of what you guys did. So thank you. Anything else?
So much. I just have a quick question, Beth. Is Dave, you also, are there any plans so once we get informed of students' progress, will there be any mechanisms in place to do some for, you know, voluntary remedial work? Are any teachers willing to work, have mentioned working online this summer to do for, you know, summer work, summer school with kids?
Yeah. Do you want me to speak to that, Beth, or do you want to go ahead?
You sure can. And I think Caroline and I could probably both weigh in.
So right. So, you know, the summer, you know, summer school, the way we know it is not really, doesn't look much like the summer school of the past. However, we have the Return to Instruction group has a group of people working on assessment of learning progress. That's what the group is. And they're looking at ways in which we can diagnose gaps in learning from the remote learning this year and kind of augment curriculum during the first trimester, if not longer, for the next school year, for the school year coming up. I think, to be honest, a lot of their conversations are revolving around just communication between teachers, allowing them to sit down, talk about what they've covered, talk about what they haven't covered. And furthermore, I'll use a tiered system, look at maybe the tier 2 and tier 3 students with more needs and how we can develop plans to support those kids. We're kicking around in our committee an idea of actually setting up or recommending a mentor program where a 3rd grade teacher and a 4th grade teacher actually have collaborative time throughout the school year to sit down, talk about instructional methods. The 4th grade teacher can kind of pick the brain of the 3rd grade teacher and figure out what he or she needs to do in the classroom in order to kind of make up some of that lost learning. Those are the conversations we're having in our group. And I know it's a SAU level group, but that's where we are.
I also will add that Bill has mentioned adding more PD time at the front of the school year. I'm sure that's going to be one of the big topics of conversation, is all the transition meetings and all things like that. In terms of teachers and scheduling at Lincoln Ackerman, which I know is your interest, I'm trying to pull teachers into the next grade with a lot of different kids just to keep some continuity going, because we'll know we need it. And we're going to also set up some intervention blocks that we know students are going to need, in addition to all the other services that we have, once we can assess where they are.
I can add, as far as over the summer, Melissa McKeon, your director of special services, will be reaching out to with the case managers reaching out to families to determine if students would benefit from an extended school year, so services this summer. There's a new executive order from the governor that requires a reopening of that conversation with some families. Some of those decisions have been made in IEP meetings since we've been in remote learning, but if those decisions were made before we went into remote learning, then all special ed teams need to reconsider any kind of services or instruction over the summer. So those conversations and decisions are happening now, and they'll happen all the way up to June 30th as far as whatever is offered in July for students. But that being said, most of it will be done remotely. And I know that, it's up to the parents, if they need a break. I think some parents are open to and eager for more instruction for their child over the summer to keep some of that structure going and keep that information fresh in their minds. While we have another group of parents who are like, I'm good, I need a break. We'll see what the fall brings, but I'd like a break this summer from sitting next to my child and doing remote learning. So we are incredibly, Lincoln Anchorman is incredibly flexible as far as meeting kids and families where they are with regards to what they need this summer. So that's currently underway.
Any additional questions? Okay, we'll move on to the withdrawal from building maintenance fund. Expendable trust. Matt, is there something we need to do here? Is this a
Yes.
vote?
So this is the withdrawal of $37,275 for the kitchen's installation of the new freezer and refrigerator. We will have the award of bid for the actual freezer refrigerator come up, but this is for the withdrawal.
I'll make a motion to withdraw $37,275 from the building maintenance expendable trust for the purchase and construction installation of a new freezer and refrigerator for the school nutrition program. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Any questions? Okay, roll call vote, Rhonda?
Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
Jason Farias,
Yes.
and Jill Swayze.
Yes.
I have the vote recorded, Greg.
Thank you. Award bid of the wireless upgrade.
Yes, so the bid process has concluded for the proposed wireless upgrade project. Bids were sent directly to 13 vendors. 3 attended the walkthrough and 2 submitted bids. I will note that one of the bids did not meet our specifications for the equipment that we were looking for. So the administration is recommending award of bid to Whaley Computer Associates in the amount of $40,771.68. This is a project that was budgeted out of the 2020-2021 operating budget, and it was budgeted at $60,000.
Any questions for Matt regarding this bid? Matt, I have one. The group out of Hampton, is it Hampton Technical that did some work for us last year? Did they not bid? Is this out of their scope of work?
Yeah, I think they were one of the vendors that we sent the bids to. They did not submit a bid though.
Interesting. Can I get a motion?
Can I ask a question?
You bet.
What do you mean funding out of the 2021 budget?
So this was a budget item for next year's budget. This
For
will
next year's
occur-
budget?
So the project will actually occur in the summer. The next year's budget starts on July 1st.
Okay, okay.
So this will occur during the summer out of next year's budget.
Thank you. Okay.
Jill, last year during budget season.
I think I just have my years off.
Oh,
All
okay.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any additional questions for Matt? Can I get a motion?
I'll move that we accept the bid for Wally Bill Computer Associates in the amount of $40,771.68 for
Second
the
that.
project of summer.
All right.
Any discussion? Roll call, Rhonda?
Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
Jason Farias,
Yes.
and Jill Swayze.
Yes.
I have the vote recorded, Greg.
Thank you. Item C, award bid freezer refrigeration.
Yes, so the bid process has also concluded for the proposed freezer and refrigerator replacement project. Bids were sent directly to 5 vendors. Only one submitted a bid, and that was Kittredge Equipment in the amount of $27,450. I will also note that the construction component of this is $9,825. That falls under the RFP threshold. So we did receive multiple quotes, but we are awarding that that component of this project to Gray Contractors. But for the actual equipment, the actual freezer and refrigerator, we are recommending award of bid to Kittredge Equipment in the amount of $27,450.
Any questions for Matt?
Knowing nothing at all about commercial fridge and freezers, what is the warranty or like the life expectancy of these things?
So this was this project was spec'd out through our school nutrition director as well as our facilities director. Based on our kitchen's needs, these are long-term pieces. These pieces of equipment are meant for long-term. So it's in the range of 30 years. Our current kitchen, our current freezer and refrigerator is in excess of 30 plus years. So we do expect a similar lifespan.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Matt, I have a question. This freezer or part of it is going outside of the building, correct?
Correct.
And will that be bricked in? Will there be a facade on that? Or is it just going to be the freezer itself?
I believe it is just the freezer. So it's similar. There's a similar setup at Winnicott.
Okay.
There is a exterior facade as far as the actual unit goes, but we're not adding brick or adding any type of decorative piece around it. So
Okay.
I can certainly get pictures or a better description that I could send to the board if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Just
Yeah.
an architectural plan view, just to where we're going to bump this out. I wouldn't mind seeing that if it's available.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only a few feet, but I will. I think it's certainly from a exterior optics perspective. That is an important piece. So.
Matt, are ballards being placed on around it to protect it?
So that's another item that, as far as Homeland Security and recommendations, we would be looking at doing is offering that buffer around, similar to natural gas lines, or other sensitive areas. So we have not, that is not included in the scope of this project, but we would certainly look at protecting it. So.
I would certainly like to look into that. We're going to invest a considerable amount of money here, and to have a truck back into it doesn't sound appealing.
Absolutely. And that's short money.
Yeah.
That's not a large investment. It makes a lot of sense. And that's something that we'd certainly look at installing.
Okay. Any additional questions for Matt? Can I get a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Bid the Kittredge equipment for the
Oh, great.
interior cooler and exterior freezer in the amount of $27,450.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Roll call, Rhonda?
Greg,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
and Jill.
Yes.
Okay, I have the vote recorded.
Thank you. I am having a problem with board docs. I am unable to view board docs at this point. So I have no idea what's next on the agenda.
It's the deliberative session dates.
Thank you.
So I will, if you don't mind, I'll combine deliberative session dates with the budget development timeline. Typically, we have those combined. They really
Yes.
align. So we have put together a timeline for our budget process, and we do anticipate delivering a proposed 2021-2022 budget to the school board on November 5th. Hampton Falls is the one district within SAU 21 that does not have a budget committee, so we don't have that time frame. However, we do anticipate spending about a month working on this budget and finalizing it for the public hearing date, which is to be determined. But our deliberative session date is scheduled for February 2nd, with a snow date scheduled for February 3rd. I will also note that the deliberative session is on the same date as the Northampton deliberative session, so we will be splitting our administrators at those deliberative sessions.
Any questions for Matt?
We just need to make sure we get Matt for our deliberative session.
Well, Northampton has already made a very generous offer for Mr. Farrar's services. I'm not sure what that says about me, but.
So
What are we talking here?
I'll be
Yeah.
taking
Who do we
offers.
pick a fight with?
Okay. So this is how it's going to be. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm still having board doc. What's next on the agenda?
The calendar, I believe, right?
Yes, the draft meeting calendar.
Yeah, so what we've provided here is the draft meeting calendar that we provided at the joint board meeting. This really lays out all of our board meetings throughout the SAU, as well as our joint board meetings, our OC meetings, our policy committee meetings, with those deliberatives and all factored in. So this is the calendar that we will utilize. Hopefully that works for you, and you can begin to pencil those dates in.
So we won't be meeting in July.
We do not normally meet in July. It actually leads into an item in the next. We may end up meeting around these issues. We don't typically schedule in July, but we will meet at least as a joint board on an as needed basis. Yes.
Okay.
Any additional questions for the schedule? And our next item, Rhonda.
Summer hiring.
So
There is a motion with that.
yeah, this is the motion that we have adopted the last number of years since I've been with you. that allows us to move forward with hiring and bring those hirings to the board for ratification. We don't have any openings now that we are hiring, or do we, Beth? I don't think we do, but anyhow, the motion is.
Bill, we do.
We do.
Sorry, I was on mute. We do. Janice Cassidy's
do.
position.
Kindergarten, I was thinking that. Okay.
Well,
we do,
that's the
kindergarten.
position, but, right.
The position, right. So the motion is to authorize the superintendent to hire staff with contracts during June, July, and August, and to bring the names of the new hires to the August and/or September board meeting for ratification, which is exactly what we've done the last few years.
Any questions for Dr. Lupini?
So does that mean that there wouldn't be any board involvement in reviewing any applicants? We wouldn't have any opportunity?
So that's a different question
Okay.
than this process, right? So whatever a hiring process looks like, the hiring process would
Got it.
still happen.
Okay. Okay. Then no questions.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent to hire staff with contracts during June, July, and August, and to bring the new hires to the school board in August and/or September.
Can I get a second?
Second that.
Did you get a second, Rhonda?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, roll call.
Greg,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
and Jill.
Yes.
I have the vote recorded for you, Greg.
Okay, thank you. Again, I don't know
Yeah.
why I'm on board docs.
I'm happy to help you.
Thank you. I mean,
Great.
I have wireless tonight.
Fancy, Greg.
We have meeting dates on here for joint board, which is next Monday night, as we talked about. The policy committee, so your policy committee rep, we meet on June 24th. That'll be a very important meeting. One of the policies that we're looking at is the new Title IX policy that's been required by regulations coming out, controversial regulations, I will say, coming out of the U.S. Department of Education. So it's important that policy committee meeting. And then your next scheduled board meeting is on August 11th, but we will see you before then, I'm certain.
And if I'm correct, the final item on the agenda is we're going into non-public, correct?
That is
Yes.
correct.
Could I get I don't have the list in front of me,
Yes,
so
it
I
is-
don't know how
It is under RSA. I'll read it for you if somebody'd like to make the motion. Motion to enter non-public session under RSA 91A3 2B, which is the hiring of any person as a public employee.
Now we take a roll call. Greg?
We need a motion and a second.
Oh, we need okay, can I get a motion to go into non-public?
Motion to go into non-public.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Now we'll do a roll call. Greg?
Yeah, Greg,
Yep.
John,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
and Jill.
Yep.
Okay, so just give me one moment. We will lock this meeting. It doesn't appear that there's anybody out in the public area attending, but we are going to stop the recording.
Is the last item to vote on the recommendation? Because I do apologize, but I do need to go very shortly.
That
Meeting
is
open.
That's
the
the
next
last
final
formal item?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You all set, Rhonda?
Yeah, the meeting's recording.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation of Matthew Nadeau for the middle school math position for the 2020-2021 school year?
Make a motion to accept superintendent's recommendation of Matt Nadeau for 2020-21 middle school math position.
Can I get a second? All in favor? Roll call?
Who seconded that? Okay, Jason.
Jay did.
Okay. Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
Jason Farias,
Yes.
and Jill Swayze.
Yes.
I have the vote recorded.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Bill? I think that's it.
That would be it.
Okay. Thank you for the entertaining meeting.
We have one more motion.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.